Thousands of Nigerian workers took to the streets on Monday to protest against a 45% increase in power prices, which they say will hit the country's poorest the hardest. Power Minister Babatunde Fashola had last week said that the increase in tariffs is aimed at improving power supply in the country, which has for decades now struggled to keep the lights on. Electricity generation last week attained a record 5 gigawatts, and that was still low, however, in terms of power needs for over 170 million people. Power supply normally hovers anywhere between 1,500 and 3,500 megawatts of generation capacity a day over the last decade, and that has forced most homes and businesses to rely on expensive and diesel-hungry power generators.
First, I can say clearly that it's illegal. Why? Because the issue is even before a court of competence. A court of competence have given a restraining order for the regulatory agency not to increase the tariff.
Our demands as Nigerian workers is, if you are increasing electricity tariff, workers' salary too should be increased. You pay us, we are the least paid workers all over the world. You pay us the little you pay us. Out of it, you are taxing us. You increase the tariff without allowing the workers to know. It affects us, it affects our family.
Let's dig deeper into what exactly ails the Nigerian power sector. Ismail Bello is from the Nigerian Labour Congress, is in studio in Lagos right now. Thank you for your time this evening, Mr. Bello. As I understand it, there was a public consultation process on the setting of these tariffs, at least for the period between 2015 and 2024. Given that, why are these protests coming up now?
Yeah, very simple. The organized labor, which comprise of the Nigerian Labour Congress or the Trade Union Congress, and our civil society allies, believe that the so-called consultation is a ruse, is an attempt by the government to forestall the attempt by organized labor to resist the new round of increases in electricity tariff. And the labor's opposition to increase in the electricity tariff is very simple. Even the logic of the market demands that you only pay for services that are rendered, but nothing significantly has changed within the electricity supply template to warrant an increase. That's one. The second is also that the present levels of income cannot cope with the barrage of increases in electricity cost, in transportation cost, in housing cost. So we believe this is not the time to tinker with the existing electricity tariff.
Without this 45% hike in tariffs for some consumer classes, what's your alternative to making sure that these distribution companies, transmission companies, generation companies do have the money they need to expand generation capacity and also ensure that supply is a lot more consistent?
That's not the business of labor. We are not to provide money for businesses to run their businesses. When these generation companies and distribution companies were bought over, were privatized by government, the commitment from the investors was that they were going to invest money, they were going to pump in money, they were going to change the entire electricity distribution and generation mechanism in Nigeria. That was the expectation. But that has not happened, and we do not expect that it's the ordinary citizen, the very poor people, whose salaries have not been paid as a wage, whose salaries have not been increased over the last 3, 4, 5 years, that you will now call upon to begin to pay more for services that are not significantly improved.
But Mr. Bello, the fact of the matter is that this money for improving the infrastructure has to come from somewhere. If you're going to protest as labor unions, do you not also have an obligation, if not a moral one, at least a logical one, to say we disagree with your solution, here's what we would like to see done?
Yeah, simple. Well, labor and indeed every Nigerian would like to see improvement, dramatic improvement in the electricity supply system. But you also know that in Nigeria in recent years and over the years there has been massive investment by the government in the electricity sector. There has also been all kinds of reforms in the electricity sector. But the point is that these processes have not brought the expected improvement that the citizens envisage. And we do not believe that it is only the attempt to increase the tariff that will solve all the problem overnight. We believe that government must continue to invest in their sector. We also believe that the private investors must look for resources to invest in generation and distribution infrastructure. When that is done, they can begin to make gradual demand on consumers, but not before that is done.
Right.
The facilities, the infrastructure, the electricity must first be generated, and not a situation where a lot of citizens are billed. We believe that people are even paying more than the electricity that they are consuming. A lot of households, a lot of industries are billed based on some kind of estimate. They call it estimated billing. So there are a lot of issues that they need to resolve. And once those are resolved, maybe there will be a legitimate demand for consultation with the relevant stakeholders for some marginal increases, not 45% increase. 45% increase is huge. It's massive for a large population of people that have not witnessed increase in pay over the last 3-4 years.
Right. Mr. Bello, we'll have to leave you there for the time being. I'm certain that your sentiments are reflected in some of the markets right across Africa. Thank you for your time. That's Ismail Bello from the National Labour Congress in Nigeria, live in Lagos.